15 years after the scandalous kidnapping of 3-year-old Amanda McCready by then police captain Jack Doyle, Amanda has finally agreed to speak of her trauma. How is she holding up? What does she think of the controversial decision made by private investigator Patrick Kenzie? Does she wish things had ended differently? Find out here now as field reporter Julia Pangonis sits down and speaks with key personnel in this case. On to you, Julia.
Amanda, a lot of changes have come into your life recently. All that aside, how are you doing?
I've been alright recently. I've had a tough couple of years with school because it's just been too hard. I recently dropped out in hopes of just finding a job and making some money.
Since dropping out of school, she's been so helpful. She's got a job as a housekeeper for a nice, rich family. If things start going bad for us, she can always take home a few souvenirs. School's never been her thing, so dropping out has been great for both of us. How has your relationship with your mom changed since you found out about those critical days when you were young? The popular novel, The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis, describes how tensions between family members can worsen with certain stressors, such as focusing on the annoyances of the person in an argument. Do you think you have succumbed to the evils of what could have happened after finding out this news? Our relationship has never been better since Amanda has found out the news. 15 years ago, we didn't let those people take away my child, and Amanda knows that I did everything to get her back. Her knowing this has made us so much closer as a family. Amanda, what do you think about this?
Well, sometimes when we argue, I think that my life maybe could have been better off if I'd stayed with the policeman. But doesn't everybody want to get a new life sometimes?
Well, your life could have been different. Can you elaborate on this?
Well, I know Patrick, the private investigator, had good intentions in sending me back to live with my mom, and the circumstances of the ongoing investigation must have made for a hard choice. But I do sometimes wonder what kind of person I could be if Patrick had chosen to leave me with the policeman.
Jack Doyle had no good intention on what his plan was. He wanted to take my baby away from me, even when he knew I was a perfect mother to her. There was no good circumstances surrounding this situation that could have ever made Doyle's decision okay. We learn through the Gospels the teachings of Jesus and how he wants us to live. In John 13:34, Jesus calls us to love one another. Amanda, do you think that Doyle loved you and had the best intention in mind when taking you? I just said that Jack Doyle had no good intention when taking my daughter. I was actually asking Amanda this question. Amanda?
Well, the idea of love is complicated, but my mom is right. My life isn't so bad. I wonder sometimes, but I don't think a change in Patrick's decision would have made much of a difference. Thank you for that, Julia. You also had the opportunity to speak with private investigator Angie Gennaro, a key person in the McCready case who has also happened to remain close with the victim. How did that conversation go?
Thank you, Molly. Angie had a lot of good things to talk about this case. Let's hear from her now. Angie, what were the thoughts going through your head the moment you found Amanda McCready?
When Patrick and I first found Amanda in the home with Jack Doyle, my heart swelled with relief. I was so glad that Amanda was still in this world. My natural next thought was, how do I respond to such a huge development? It was clear that she was living a happy life with Doyle, but who am I to deprive a mother of her child? At that moment, I knew that Doyle would care for Amanda with a love that her mom had never shown her. Although legally he was in the wrong, I can't help but wish we would have defended Doyle. I begged my boyfriend Patrick to not say anything, but it was no use. Looking back on this, I can never forgive him for what he did. Anyone can see that Helene failed her as a mother and has led her down her own dark path. There could have been a question of what was right and wrong in this situation, but the right decision was clearly keeping Amanda with Jack.
How did this decision all those years ago impact your relationship with Patrick?
I loved Patrick at the time, and I still do. But this decision that he made was selfish, and he could not look at the well-being of Amanda over his loyalty to the law. Sometimes I wonder if leaving him was the right thing to do, since Patrick was just doing what he thought was right. But what even is a right decision? I think of the book End of the Affair by Gregory Greene. Sarah refused to be with the protagonist, who she had had an affair with, as she was too connected to her faith and already married to Henry. In this situation, I had to weigh my relationship with factors of morality. Just as Sarah prioritized her values over her relationship, I had to as well. Even looking back at it, I still would leave Patrick again if it meant the well-being of Amanda.
Angie, you seem really close to Amanda. Why do you think you have developed such an emotional connection with this case?
After the dramatic reunion of Amanda and her mother, I couldn't find it in myself to walk away. Helene has demonstrated time and time again that she is unfit to bear the responsibility of a child. So I step in occasionally to try to correct some of Helene's wrongs. Patrick does the same. It doesn't reverse the mistake of placing her back in her mother's custody all those years ago, but it does help to ease my conscience a little bit.
In the popular book Tattoos on the Heart, Father Greg Boyle explains how he developed Homeboy Industries to transform the lives of those on the fringe of society. The story demonstrates that nobody is without hope. Looking forward, do you see any glimmer of hope in Helene to live with more integrity? Could she live more nobly for the sake of her daughter?
There is clear evidence that Helene has no intention of changing her life. She had the opportunity to fix her wrongs after those crazy days years ago. The thing about change is that one actually has to want it in order to fix their life. Helene clearly has no intention and did not have any intention years ago. I wish that those days back then put it in her head that it was her fault that her daughter went missing, but this was clearly not the case. I hope Amanda can be successful in her life while being able to move on from her troubling childhood.
In the future, do you think you will continue to have a relationship with Amanda and her mother? What is the personal impact of this case on you?
I don't think this case will really ever leave me. Since that day, I have quit my job and have started working in child services. I hope to find better lives for as many kids as I can that are in tough situations like Amanda. I love Amanda and she will always have a place in my life.
Thank you, Angie, for your time and thoughtful contribution. Back to you, Molly.
Well, it's clear that the bizarre events in the kidnapping case of Amanda McCready continue to touch those involved. Parents, take this as a reminder to hold your kids extra close tonight. That's all for tonight. Thank you for tuning in.